members and the Assembly, since the Assembly is made up of members from partner states who are required to move around partner states and the community. In addition, members and the Assembly are mandated to discharge their oversight mandate over the partner states, even during the implementation of these measures. Other critical functions of the Assembly, which cannot be delegated or abrogated during this period, include approval of the community budget in accordance with Articles 49(2)b and 132(2) of the treaty, and processing essential legislation for the community. The team of members. It is against this background the Assembly nominated a team of members to develop guidelines for conducting plenary meetings online. The team composed of the following: Honorable Susan Nakauki Nsambu, team leader; Honorable Dr. Ubur Oginga; Honorable Francois Xavier Kalinda. The team was assisted by technical officers designated by the clerk for this purpose. The technical team composed of the following: Mr. Dennis Kibirige, Principal Legislative Draftsman; Dr. Anatoly Nahayo, Senior Research Officer; Mr. Asheri Wimile, Senior Clerk Assistant; Ms. Emiliana Tvoye, Personal Secretary to the Clerk. The methodology used. The committee was informed that during the undertaking of this assignment, the team was guided by the following: the Treaty for the Establishment of the East African Community, Rules of Procedure of the East African Legislative Assembly 2015, Interparliamentary Union IPU, Country Compilation of Parliamentary Responses to COVID-19 Pandemic, CPA Toolkit for Commonwealth Parliaments on Delivering Parliamentary Democracy During COVID-19 Pandemic, Guidelines and Measures on Controlling COVID-19 Pandemic, issued by the community, partner states, and the World Health Organization. The United Nations General Assembly decision to hold virtual meetings of the Assembly and guidelines on holding meetings within the community. The team also took into account guidelines and measures for virtual parliaments introduced by the European Parliament, the parliaments of Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, the Parliament of South Africa, the House of Commons, the Parliament of Belgium, the Parliament of Northern Ireland. Observations and recommendations by Honorable Susan Nakauki. Honorable Nakauki informed the committee that during the undertaking this task, the team observed the following: in accordance with Article 6 of the treaty, the proceedings of the Assembly can only be governed by rules of procedure and not guidelines. Article 49, Sub-Rule 2, G and 60 of the treaty empowers the Assembly to make its own rules of procedure to govern the proceedings and that of its committees. The Assembly can make, amend, add, or revoke rules governing the procedure of the Assembly. The current rules of procedure for committees, contained in Annex 8 of the Rules of Procedure of the Assembly 2015, can continue to be applied to govern meeting of committees, because there is nothing that can prevent a committee from conducting an online meeting. Parliaments within the community, the region, and globally have made modifications to their rules of procedure to accommodate the parliamentary procedures, practices, and traditions by making specific amendments, issuing guidelines, issuing separate and specific rules to govern meetings in a virtual online setting, temporarily suspending some rules of procedure, issuing temporary rules of procedure to operate for a specified period, and then lapse. The team recommended that the Assembly adopts new rules of procedure to govern virtual meetings and sittings of the Assembly. The team prepared the rules, which is annexed to this report as Annex 2. The recommendation of the team was presented to the Commission, which considered and agreed. Consideration of the proposals by the committee. Options for adoption of rules on virtual meetings and sittings of the Assembly. The committee considered a number of options on the procedure that may be followed by the Assembly during the consideration and adoption of the proposed rules for virtual meetings of the Assembly as follows. 1. Conducting a meeting of the Assembly where at least 3 members from each partner state who will be facilitated to travel to an agreed area to consider and adopt these rules of procedure so that these rules are adopted in accordance with Rule 85 of Rules of Procedure of the Assembly 2015. Convene a meeting of the Assembly in accordance with Articles 55 of the Treaty and Rule 10 of the Rules of Procedure of the Assembly 2015. The meeting would begin with a procedural motion to hold the meeting virtually. Once the motion is passed by the Assembly, the Committee on Legal Rules and Privileges will present its report and consideration would follow according to the existing rules of procedure of the Assembly. And 4, convene an initial virtual meeting of the Assembly, which will consider the rules and adopt them as it was proposed by the team. The committee recommends to the Assembly to adopt option 2 and accordingly convene a meeting of the Assembly in accordance with Articles 55 of the Treaty and Rule 10 of the Rules of Procedure of the Assembly. The meeting should commence with a procedural motion moved by the chairperson of the Committee on Legal Rules and Privileges for the Assembly to resolve to hold its meeting virtually. Thereafter, the Committee on Legal Rules and Privileges should present its report and the debate should follow in accordance with the rules of procedure of the Assembly. How the rules of procedure for virtual meetings and sittings of the Assembly are made. The committee considered the way how the adopted rules will be applied. The team proposed that the rules of procedure for virtual meetings and sittings of the Assembly be made as new rules, which would be additional to the rules of procedure of the Assembly 2015. Their proposal will be anchored on Article 60 of the Treaty, which empowers the Assembly, among other things, to add rules governing the procedure of the Assembly. The committee considered the proposal of the team and decided that instead of making new rules and adding to the rules of procedure of the Assembly 2015, the new rules be included as amendment to the existing rules. To implement this proposal, Rule 10 of the Rules of Procedure of the Assembly 2015 need to be amended to specifically provide in the rules for virtual meetings and sittings of the Assembly. The rules of procedure for virtual meetings and sittings of the Assembly shall be included as Annex 10. Consideration of the draft rules of procedure for virtual meetings and sittings of the Assembly. The committee reviewed all the 25 rules contained in the rules of procedure for virtual meetings and sittings of the Assembly and agreed as follows. 1, we recommended to delete Rule 2. 2, the reason is that such a provision was needed when the proposed rules were to be additional to the current rules. But since this is an amendment, that provision is not needed. The committee directed to delete Rule 7, which provides for suspension of proceedings of the Assembly where there is interruption due to connectivity or other technical challenges affecting the quorum of the Assembly. The reason is that the issue of quorum and how to handle it is already provided for under Rule 12 of the Rules of Procedure of the Assembly 2015. Amend 14 Sub-Rule 1 by specifying timeline for which a member should be required to electronically submit a document to the clerk. The timeline agreed by the committee is 3 hours before the beginning of a plenary on which that document is expected to be laid. The reason is that the clerk needs time to process the document before it is laid on the table. amend Rule 17 by adding a sub-rule to provide for the manner in which the voting by secret ballot will be held. The reason is that there are laws and rules that require a certain matter be decided by a secret vote. Add a rule that will prescribe the manner and time of presenting the report of committees of the Assembly. The procedure provided under Rule 19 should apply with modification to committee reports. The reason is that some of the committee reports are long, therefore there is a need to have time frame of their presentation as it is required for the presentation of the budget. Delete Rule 24. The reason is since Rule 85 of the Rules of Procedure of the Assembly 2015 provides for the adoption of amendments to the Rules of Procedure. Delete Rule 25 on the amendment. The reason is that the amendment procedure is provided for under Rule 85 of the Rules of Procedure of the Assembly 2015. Delete reference to the Rules of Procedure of the Assembly 2015 contained in Rule 13 and 15, Sub-Rule 3. The reason is that such reference would be needed where the virtual rules were additional to the current rules. Since it is an amendment, the references are not needed. The committee prepared the amended Rules of Procedure for virtual meeting and sittings of the Assembly, which is attached as Annex 3, recommendations. The committee recommends to the Assembly that the committee recommends the Assembly to convene a meeting of the Assembly in accordance with Article 55 of the Treaty and Rule 10 of the Rules of Procedure of the Assembly. The meeting should commence with the procedural motion moved by the chairperson of the committee on legal rules and privileges for the Assembly to resolve to hold its meeting virtually. Amend Rule 10 of the Rules of Procedure of the Assembly 2015 to specifically provide in the rules for virtual meetings and sittings of the Assembly. The committee recommends that Rule 10 should be amended as follows. Rule 10 of the Rule of Procedure of the Assembly is amended by inserting immediately after Sub-Rule 5 the following new sub-rule. 5A, the Assembly may hold its meetings or sittings virtually in accordance with Annex 10. Conclusion. The committee is grateful to the Right Honorable Speaker, the Commission, and the Office of the Clerk for allowing the committee to undertake this activity. The development of rules of procedure for virtual meetings and sittings of the Assembly is one of the many achievements of this Assembly. The committee would like to commend Honorable Susan Nakauki Nsambu, Honorable Dr. Obur Oginga, and Honorable Dr. Francois Xavier Kalinda for developing the draft rules of procedure for virtual meetings and sittings of the Assembly. Likewise, the committee commends the technical team which provided technical support to honorable members. The technical team was composed of Mr. Dennis Kibirige, Principal Legislative Draftsman, Dr. Anatoli Nahayo, Senior Research Officer, Mr. Sher Wimile, Senior Clerk Assistant, and Ms. Emilian Tuhoye, Personal Secretary to the Clerk. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, for your kind attention.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Honorable Ambassador Fatuma. Honorable members, the motion before the House is that the report of the Committee on Legal Rules and Privileges on the proposal for the rules of procedure for virtual meetings and sittings of the Assembly and the rules of procedure for virtual meetings and sittings of the Assembly be adopted. Debate is open. Dr. Oburu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to a very important motion. Mr. Speaker, I think this is a landmark legislation that we are, enacting today, and that is the rules of procedure for the virtual sittings, which is going to guide the assembly not only now, but also in future. Mr. Speaker, I was in the technical committee. I was in the committee, which was subcommittee, which was appointed by the House and approved by the Commission to look into these rules and for virtual sittings, and we did our work. And Mr. Speaker, seeing now the presentation by the chair of the Legal Affairs Committee, I would not like to antagonize what the chair has presented. And from the very beginning, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I support what the presentation given. But Mr. Speaker, I have my misgivings about giving these rules as an amendment to the existing rules of procedure of the Assembly 2015, which actually provided for a physical sitting. Mr. Speaker, these rules did not take into consideration the virtual sitting. And the situation in which we are is a situation which is like war. It is something which has affected the whole world. It has crippled many economies. It is seriously affecting the economies of the East African communities. And we are in a dire situation where we need guidance from leaders, and we cannot sit back and watch the situation as it is without us having an input as Parliament. All parliaments in the East African community are sitting virtually, and they are making very important decisions. And I think it is important that our Parliament also sits and make their input into this current situation, because by our own rights, Mr. Speaker, we are leaders, and as leaders, we have a right to speak out our mind. My small misgiving, Mr. Speaker, sir, it was making an amendment to these existing rules 2015, because we are not amending these rules, Mr. Speaker. We are simply adding to these rules, because, Mr. Speaker, these rules did not take into consideration a situation like this one, where we have now to sit virtually. And we have to develop new rules which cater for sitting virtually. And by developing new rules, and we are allowed by the same provision which allows us to make our own rules, to either amend or add. And we prefer to go by the word add, amend, but of course my preference would have been to go by the one which is also provided for, which is to add. The reason why I'm saying add is because, Mr. Speaker, as it is now, the rule which we were using did not allow for a subcommittee to, of the whole House, which was appointed by the whole House, to submit this even to the legal committee. What was there from the very beginning was just a provision for which was given by the House, appointing a subcommittee to go and develop these rules separately, and that was done. Now, after it was done, then it became a second thought of very sharp legal minds within our community here, who now thought that the procedure we had adopted originally was wrong. We should revise it and now call this thing an amendment, which now was to be submitted to the Legal Affairs Committee by an individual, because that provision just talks about an individual. But then when you listen to the chair of the legal subcommittee, it is now talking about the subcommittee in the report, which was not actually the case. Originally, what was submitted to them was by our chair, Susan, but not as our chair. He submitted it as Susan Nakaushi. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, that being the case, of course, I think it is already overtaken by events. That was my strong feeling, Mr. Speaker. And I would like to congratulate the Committee of Legal Affairs for having now made it possible, because then
Dr. Oburu,
through the amendment, Mr. Speaker.
Dr. Oburu, may I interrupt you briefly before you conclude? Because if I delay, it may be too late for me to do this. First of all, the way I understand it, and I'm actually interrupting you so that you don't conclude before you take my advice. So the idea here is that you think this should be another set of rules we add to the rules we have that are actually addressing different situations, but the rules we had before are okay, can remain as such. Now, that is the idea I think you can pursue through an amendment. Because the issue of whether we are amending or we are, whatever language we can use, what is happening is that we are making some alterations to the legal regime of our rules of the House. So as long as we arrive at that same situation, we are still in order. If Dr. Oburu decided to move for the amendment that we adopt these rules as a separate set of rules, procedurally, it would be wrong. Because even if we don't use the language of amending, we are making some alteration of the rules anyway. We are making some alterations of the rules. That's another way of interpreting law, looking at what we are doing and not being stuck in the linguistics of the drafting. So this is something you can consider if we wanted to move to amend the way these rules can be adopted. It can be placed on the table.
Now, Mr. Speaker, that will be taking the House back. And Mr. Speaker, I think because already in the report by the chair, there are also substantial amendments which have now been made to the existing rules in order to accommodate this thing as an amendment. And because of that, Mr. Speaker, I think by suggesting that that amendment that we adapt that, we are going to go back and again start this thing afresh. And yet the whole world is continuing, Mr. Speaker. The whole world is working. And we cannot continue arguing on technicalities, arguing on small issues here and there. But I think I just wanted to make my point clear so that, you know, I'm not dragging the House behind, I mean backwards. But, Mr. Speaker, I thought it was important for me to express some of these views in my contribution. But in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to strongly support that we move the way which we went with the way of amendment, which I was not for. But now that we have done the amendments, they are done well, and the committee worked hard. And Madam Chair, I want to commend you and your committee for a good work well done. And thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I beg to support.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Oburu. Can I see another Honorable Susan and Honorable Kennedy Kalonzo, Honorable
Dr. Warder.
Dr. Warder.
Aden. And Aden.
Yes. Honorable Aden after. Then Honorable Mbide. Okay. In that order.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I want to first of all thank the Committee of Legal Rules and Privileges for the job well done. Honorable Speaker, we've devoted a lot of time to this process to ensure that the Assembly is able to work in the prevailing circumstances. We had a lot of exchanges as the Committee of Legal Rules and Privileges, and it's because of those exchanges that we were able to eventually agree on how to proceed. Honorable Speaker, it's very important that the East African Legislative Assembly does not sit home, sleep, or enjoy the comfort of holiday resorts simply because we are not able to work due to the fact that we are not able to travel. By the nature of our work, we're supposed to travel to be able to do our work. But at the same time, it would be the worst offense for the Assembly to keep quiet in a time like this, when the people of East Africa need to hear comforting voices regarding the situation at hand of COVID-19. As it has been well articulated by my chair, Honorable Ndangiza, we have roles to play as an Assembly, as they are well stipulated under the treaty, under Article 49. Honorable Speaker, I know every parliament at this time of the year is working hard or has already passed their budget. And this is a budgeting period. ESC is supposed to pass its budget, and it's only the Assembly that has that power to perform that noble function. Honorable Speaker, I'd like to put it on record that it's not only EALA. Different parliaments have had to adapt this kind of method. The UN General Assembly has already taken a decision. They are going to proceed virtually because they know they are not able to meet physically. And they have come up with guidelines to guide them. We know different institutions and organs of the community have heed to the directives of Council to meet and continue working virtually. So EALA cannot be an exception. I know very well all other regional parliaments because we took time to study the mode that is being used by other regional parliaments, like the European Union, like the CIMAC. All these parliaments are transacting business virtually, and so should we. Honorable Speaker, I know anyone who would try to block the Assembly from conducting its business virtually would be just malicious. In fact, I would have expected that the entire Council of Ministers, other than those ones who have leave from the Speaker for different reasons, but at least Secretary General should be here with us. The CTC should be here with us as an Assembly, because this is a milestone for us as an Assembly and for the region in general, because it means any kind of work that ought to be done by this Assembly is going to be done despite the situation that is prevailing. So I would call upon all Council members, the Secretary General, the CTC, to join us in this endeavor. I know very well the committees, for the committees, it's very easy, because when you look at section 16 and 18 of the rules governing our committees, they talk of flexibility, that committees should be flexible in the way they do their business. So at least with committees, there has not been any hurdle, even at committee level, even at the subcommittee level. It was just an easy task for the committees. However, I would like to also put it on record, because we are very careful when we're doing our job and coming up with a report, that it's not because we cannot conduct our virtual meetings without without the new rules in place. We know we can even proceed with our own old rules. They allow us, because our rules of procedure are very clear. I think it's under Rule 84.2, that where the rules are silent on anything, it's the Speaker who decides, not the court, not anyone else. So you could still proceed with our own rules under the guidance of the Speaker. But you just said there are some areas where the law is really silent, and to help the Speaker could be there
to answer all the questions that you could have, we could just come up with some provisions to cover the gaps that we find are existing in our current rules. So I want all my colleagues to be comforted by the fact that we are not doing anything wrong. If anyone wants to come up with a court case, it's fine. They are free to express their right to judicial process, but we will still be able also to defend ourselves as an assembly, especially that even the EACJ, the East African Court of Justice, is also hearing all matters virtually. That even all those people who would want to drag us to court, they will have to do it virtually at the same time. So I'm very confident that we are not going to find any hurdles. We've made our proclamation as an assembly. We are following the treaty. The treaty has given us all those powers. We can amend, we can add, we can revoke, we can do anything as an assembly. As long as we are performing our treaty obligations, then we are good to go. I beg to submit and support the report of the committee.
Thank you so much, Honorable Susan. I think that clarification is very important because this session is open for the press. We could have gone on with our rules, but we are just making it more convenient to match the reality. So I don't want anyone to make a mistake and think that we are trying to answer a question of whether we can sit or not. No, we can sit. That's why we sit in different capitals when we want. The motion we move is not different from the one we had here. But we just wanted to make it more convenient for ourselves. And that is what is going on now. Honorable Kalonzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Let me first declare I'm a member of the committee and I support this report. I think much has been said by my able seniors. I want to congratulate this House, which since I've joined has been very innovative and exciting and not afraid to chart uncharted waters, but to be a front runner. You know, years down the line, people will look back at this assembly and say, we worked and did amazing work given the circumstances. Mr. Speaker, mine are very brief. I want to encourage this House that we should adopt these rules. As my able senior, Honorable Susan, has said, we can sit if we so wish to do so. But our rules are designed for prosperity. So even as I support this, I'm sure there will be room to amend various clauses. And let us not be afraid to do so. So I submit, Right Honourable Speaker, I support the report. I wish you could adopt it as soon as possible.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kalonzo, and I can see the lockdown has really worked on you. Honorable Dr. Woda.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And once again, I just want to pay my condolences to my colleagues in Burundi chapter, and also thanks my colleagues who really stood with us as a chapter during the passing on of our Honorable Minister. And again, I really want to thank the Kenyan chapter and all the ESC for them granting the UN Security Council seat. Right, Honorable Speaker, regarding the report, I appreciate really the work of the subcommittee because they have done very well, and also the Committee of Legal Rule and Procedures for us really to continue our work. Right, Honorable Speaker, as many of our members have said that we are working in unusual times and circumstances, so that we have to adapt to new rules and regulations. And also, I'm glad that one of my concerns was the vote in the first report, but in this report, there is really a very good option of voting electronically. And these measures, as an assembly, we have really to adapt them because I got many people from out the region commenting our work that the assembly didn't stop its works. We are able to work virtually. And I appreciate that this committee has really done a lot of review and consultation, even consulting the other work of the parliament during their virtual sessions. And again, Right Honorable Speaker, we have really to learn even from our kids. I'm a very proud mom today because I've been called that I've been getting the online result of my kids, and they have been resuming their school virtually because the school didn't stop. And if the small kids can really work virtually, what about us as an assembly? And I just want to beg the support of our colleagues that let's really adopt this report so that we resume our work and do the business which we're supposed to do. I beg to support right now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Woda. Honorable Mbide, then Honorable Aden. I will first finish this list. Honorable Mbide, then Honorable Aden, then I pick another list.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Let me also begin by giving my whole support to this report, and also, just like the honorable colleagues have said, to equally remind any possible prophets of doom, particularly with regards to, because Right Honorable Speaker, it is also known to the Assembly that we have conducted so far 2 plenaries. And it is not debatable as to whether those were done in error or the contrary, merely because we are passing the rules on virtual meetings today. So clearly, I find it important that each time we also stand up to talk to take our colleagues through the legal framework with which we are particularly operating. Honorable members, the treaty creates areas of original jurisdiction to several organisms of the East African community. Particularly when you look at Article 55(1) of the treaty, it states that the meetings of the Assembly shall be held. Shall, honorable members, is a mandatory provision at such times and places. Honorable members, mark the word places. That one is in plural. As the Assembly may appoint. And the honorable members, this is exactly what we have done. Virtual places that are now constituting the Assembly have been appointed by this Assembly. And accordingly, we are well within the precincts and the members and chambers of the Assembly. So clearly this was what Honorable Speaker equally reflected in the rules, and particularly the most persuasive rule is Rule 10, Sub-Rule 5, which clearly stipulates the same reasoning as was given, of course, by the treaty, and it equally states under Rule 10.3 that this is called an assembly sitting exactly when presided over by the Speaker, which, Right Honorable Speaker, you are doing. So clearly, Right Honorable Speaker, we think we are well within the precincts of the law as we convene. Just that as a mere imponderable, we have resolved to have substantive rules by way of annex established for this purpose. 2, Right Honorable Speaker, we had some ping pong with the Honorable Oburu Odinga, and I spent the whole night trying to read the law, only to discover that we are actually talking about the same thing. When I looked at the Black's Law Dictionary 6th edition, I discovered that actually adding means annex. So clearly this is what we have done, Right Honorable Speaker. So what the treaty does under this Article 60 is to again give us original jurisdiction to do anything we please with our rules. And it stipulates, Right Honorable Speaker, that the Assembly may make, amend, add to, or revoke rules governing the procedure of the Assembly. So we have amended the Rule 10 by adding an annex, and clearly we are well within both the aspirations of Honorable Odinga and the aspirations of those that have called it Annex 10. So I have discovered we had a disagreement, Honorable Odinga, but actually we are the same. If you were clearly near me, I would even shake hands, Right Honorable Speaker, with your permission. So, Right Honorable Speaker, for me, I would congratulate the team that had been was appointed to do this donkey job. It is not usually possible that under the circumstances people can have time to do what they have done. I would equally congratulate them. I congratulate also the Committee on Legal for brainstorming on a matter that really was also this complex. To me, I equally congratulate you, Right Honourable Speaker, for presiding over an assembly with divergent opinions, but where each time we get to a conclusion, we emerge with a single opinion. In my opinion, I support the report that it actually provides for an amendment to include virtual sittings of the assembly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mbide. And now finally on this list, Honorable Aden. Then I can see more hands. I will pick the new list after Honorable Aden.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. I also want to add my voice in supporting this very, what I will call very historic decision that we are taking this evening, and which will go into record and will most likely stay forever, because indeed what COVID brought was not anticipated in our lifetime. Let me just put it that way. Not in the lifetimes of many of our ancestors have such a thing been seen, and therefore the whole world is resetting. New rules are being written, new laws are being written. COVID-19 will cause even constitutional amendments in countries. It's a reality of life that we have to live with. And for that reason, I feel very proud as a member of this assembly to participate in this historic moment as we also reshape and fine-tune the laws of this particular house. Honorable Speaker, I concur with my colleagues. You know, when the treaty talks of the addition, or because in Article 60, the Assembly may amend, add, or revoke rules. Indeed, I agree very much with Honorable Mbide. What we have done, and I really want to commend Honorable Fatuma and her team, because they have done it in a very clever way. They have rather found a very clever way of housing most of the other amendments that were brought in the existing rules, and made only one, because remember, we are only dealing with the two recommendations. I'm just looking at the committee report. If I refer you to the reports, honorable members, we are only passing two recommendations today. The first one is already done, the one on the recommendation for the Assembly convene for a meeting. The one we are doing today, and which I commend the Honorable Fatumas and team, they have cleverly found a way of housing this, what otherwise looks huge amendment, into one annexure. And by only adding one sentence to our to our existing rules, which is number 5A, which says the Assembly may hold its meetings or sittings virtually in accordance with Annexure 10. That literally takes care of everything. All these provisions are now housed in one place and are only provided for in our rules in one line. Very articulate way, very exceptional way of putting it, and I really commend that committee for that. On equal measures, Honorable Speaker, allow me to commend the team that we had selected to do. The Honorable Susan Nakauki, Honorable Oburu Odinga, and Honorable Professor Kalinda, the team that we had set to put a proposal, because somebody had to follow rule number 85, and the members I have just mentioned, they helped us in following rule number 85 and put a recommendation to the Committee on Legal, which the Committee on Legal has now brought before the House, which now the House is considering, which now I feel honored to sit in that House. And I support this motion, I support these recommendations, and I strongly urge our colleagues that we pass these recommendations today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now I pick a new list. Is that Dr. Gabriel? Dr. Gabriel? Alak? That is Dr. Alak. And is there Dr. Anne, then Honorable Thomas?
Yes.
You bear with me because sometimes Honorable Dr. Magembe and Honorable, is that Honorable Muhirwa?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Honorable Makame.
And Honorable Dr. Makame. In that order.
Mukuria.
Honorable Dr. Mukuria, finally. So, Dr. Alak.
Yes.
Honorable Alak. Yes, General.
General Alak, yes. Thank you, right honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Let me first say that I stand with the people of Burundi for the situation, the experience, the loss of the president. And let me also congratulate them for the swearing in of the new president. And thank you all honorable colleagues for standing with us when we lost Minister for Interpretation Affairs. Now, I'm speaking really to support the motion, but I need to register that I was almost swayed before by Honorable Dr. Oburu when he was saying, if we are amending, okay, then that should not be the case, which we are adding. But I'm also convinced by Honorable Bidi when he said these ones we put them as annexes, which if at all the situation becomes good and we go to Arusha, then we will not bother about that annex. I'm saying this because these extraordinary situations happen once in a while, after some decades, like the situation we are in here. And the situation might go to normal in a few months or few years to come. So I had thought we were going to add and put them separately. But I'm convinced that as far as these things are put in an annex, we can go and suspend these annexes if the situation becomes good when we go back to Arusha. So I support the motion. So thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you so much, Honorable Alak. Honorable Dr. Ann.
Yeah, Right Honorable Speaker, I want to thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this debate. Right Honorable Speaker, I'm a member of the Legal Rules and Privileges Committee, and I want to start by thanking the Select Committee led by Honorable Susan, and I also want to thank our chair for a job well done. Right Honorable Speaker, the existence of COVID-19 pandemic should not and cannot render this parliament redundant or irrelevant. Instead, this is the time when we join hands with the executive, with the Council of Ministers, and with the parliaments in our partner states to fight COVID-19 and all the ills that it has come with. So really, I support this report because it's going to make us more active and respond with confidence to whatever is affecting our partner states. Right Honorable Speaker, we do understand parliaments are houses of rules. In our case, we have rules which is not prepared for the COVID pandemic, and in such a situation, we normally refer to the bigger rule, which is the treaty. Unfortunately, those who prepared that treaty knew exactly the changing situation and the need to give powers to the parliament so that they can use that power to be responding to situations as it changes. So I really feel we've done the right thing as a parliament to refer to the treaty, Article 60, and pick up that powers that have been given to us and come up with the rules that will make us relevant and be able to take decisions as we ought to do. Right Honorable Speaker, I quickly would want to conclude that I support this report because it has given us opportunity to come up with a rule or a set of rules that is not only thorough, but also it can stand the test of time, because it's now making us able to use the most relevant technology that does not involve getting together to do things. So I want to conclude by thanking and giving my support to this report. I beg to submit.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ann. Honorable Thomas.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I would want also to add my voice to my colleague who has spoke before me. First of all, to register my felt condolences to honorable colleague from Burundi chapter for the loss. Number two, I would want also to congratulate them because they were able also to swear in the new leadership, so that that vacuum of the leadership is filled and the situation come back to normal. Number two, I would want also to congratulate colleague, the chapter from Kenya, for Kenya winning the United Nations Security Council seat. Coming back to the report, I write to support the motion and the report. This report is really important for us as an assembly with regard to the outbreak of the COVID-19, which is affecting the whole world. As an oversight institution, we are relevant to respond because COVID-19 is actually affecting the life of our community, the region, affecting our economy. So this amendment came in at a critical time when we need it very much. So I'm here to support the report and the motion, and finally would want also to congratulate my colleagues who were actually selected, technical people who have worked into this amendment and come up with a very important document taking into account our rule, the treaty, and the rule of procedure. I would want also to concur with my colleague Mbedi, because he put it right. Laws are actually developed and are actually there to amend when circumstances like this situation occur. So they are due to amendment. So as an assembly, we have done the right thing. The whole world also are engaged, trying to amend their own laws, and as an assembly, I'm really congratulating us ourselves because we are doing a very right full amendment in responding to our situation. So I end up here to support the report and this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Thomas. Honorable Dr. Magembe.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. I actually had my hand up. I really didn't have my hand up to speak, but because I have the floor, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the way you've led us during this crisis.
Let me put it on record that I saw your hand up, but if you didn't intend to speak, we can as well proceed to another member.
I have a few points, Honorable Speaker. I'd like to thank you for your leadership during this crisis.
These are really extraordinary times. I would like to congratulate the chairperson of the committee and the committee in general. And I would like to say that I support the motion. And because I really didn't prepare anything and in line with what you're saying, Honorable Speaker, I yield the floor to the Honorable Makame. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I am the one to decide who speaks next. Thank you. Yes, Honorable Muhirwa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the subject matter. Before I give my contribution, allow me to thank you, all members, who have been showing the spirit of solidarity with the people of Burundi regarding the hard situations, moments of trying that we have been passing through. Thank you, and God bless you very much. And let me thank God because we are all safe during these moments of COVID pandemic. We really thank God because we are still safe, and praise be given to our Almighty God. Coming back to the subject matter of this meeting, let me declare that I'm a member of legal committee. I want to commend and salute the leadership of the chair of our committee, and let me also salute the subcommittee that has been nominated to initiate different laws that may be added so as to ease our activities during these moments of difficulties. Right, Honorable Speaker, the worldwide is under hard moments due to COVID pandemic. And let us be strong. COVID pandemic has not come to kill our integration. COVID pandemic has not come to stop our community from working. There is a saying in my community which says that a man of virtue appears in moments of trying. It's up to us now to make laws and rules that may ease to continue working even if we're still facing this COVID pandemic. And let me remind you that East African Legislative Assembly is the single organ that is the voice of EAC citizens. It is under these hard circumstances that the EAC citizens really need our voice and our working. Let's stand as MPs of EAC and work and come up to the assistance of the people. They have elected us to work. And it is not only COVID pandemic. Tomorrow we may face another disaster, another challenge. Let us be proactive and make rules which will really ease us to continue working and serving the people of EAC. Right, Honorable Speaker, what we are doing, we are always in order because the treaty does give power to us to add any other rules to the existing ones through the committee in charge of legal affairs. It is the issue that we have been doing within the legal committee. Any member who may have any kind of rule to be amended or to be added on, it is through the legal committee. And the legal committee has already worked on the draft given by the subcommittee of 3 members. And whatever we are doing, even if we add other laws, or even if we use the current rules that we have, we are always in order. And whatever we are doing, it is under the blessings of the leaders of our community. Let me remind you that there is a directive of the heads of states of our partner states who have already given a directive that video conferences be used in circumstances whereby members may not meet physically. It's a decision, it's a directive which is there even before there is an outbreak of COVID. So we are in order. We are implementing even directive from the summit. There is again a decision of the Council of Ministers. During the outbreak of COVID, they met and decided that so as to mitigate and combat COVID pandemic, we have to avoid physical meetings. They decided that we meet and continue working through video conferences. We are then implementing decision from the Council of Ministers. And again, all institutions and organs of EAC, they are working through video conferences. The court, they are doing what we are doing. All institutions and organs, whatever they are doing is the way we members are doing. So my contribution is that, Right Honorable Speaker, let us not waste our time. Please, I ask that you put a question, that we adopt these rules and we move. And thank you.
Yes, I take it that Honorable Muhirwa is moving to end the debate, but allow me, Honorable Muhirwa, to pick the two members whom I had mentioned, and then I process your request. I process your motion. I had already appointed Dr. Makame and the Honorable Mukuria. Then we consider Honorable Muhirwa's proposal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to air my voice on this very important motion. And before I start giving my comment, Mr. Speaker, I'd like just to say from the outset that I support the motion in totality and in full, because we all know how it started, Mr. Speaker. But I'll go back to that. And also, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to join my colleagues, all of them, and all of us, we have expressed our solidarity in grieving with fellow East Africans for the untimely departure of our member of summit from the Republic of Burundi, His Excellency Pierre Nkurunziza. We actually have placed a motion with you, Mr. Speaker, and you already indicated that you're going to give it a priority in the parliamentary business, which we're going to conduct in due course. And Mr. Speaker, again, I'd like also to join my fellow East Africans in commending the member of summit from the Republic of Burundi for taking office and swearing in yesterday. It's very timely, and now our summit is fully constituted, because we were very sad, and we're still very sad for losing President Nkurunziza, but we are happy that there is no vacuum now, because the Republic of Burundi had somehow anticipated and had already prepared and had already conducted the elections in May. Mr. Speaker, now going to the motion, which I said I'm supporting in full, Mr. Speaker, is that, Mr. Speaker, as you remember, you had your own words, you had shared with us, the words of wisdom, that our procedures, we have them to help us to work, and they shouldn't be detrimental to our work. So we can always tune them and fine-tune them to be able to conduct business, the business that East Africans are expecting us to do. And indeed, the COVID pandemic has made us work virtually, but the good thing is that our organization is IT compliant, and we've managed to fill in that gap which was taking place. And we thank that the Speaker, under your leadership, you directed that we form this committee led by our three able legislators who developed this report. And this report was duly processed by the Committee on Legal Rules and Privileges. So we commend all the members of the Select Committee and the members of the Legal Rules and Privileges, and the chairperson, especially the Excellency Ambassador Fatuma Ndagiza, for actually enabling this and coming now with these proposals to this House and now that we now can proceed to work and deliver the mandate given to us by East Africans, and continue to say that one people, one destiny does not mean that it is gone. We are still one people. We are united people. We are united East Africa, and COVID, they cannot make us separate. So if they want to separate us with the COVID, we are united virtually, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, just before I maybe say that to thank you once again for the floor, Mr. Speaker, is to say that we are a parliament which is united, and we should continue being so. We've made an innovation to bring IT issues that are going to help us here. We are all supporting. I can see we are all in one voice supporting the report and the motion from the Honorable Chair of the Legal Rules and Privileges. And we hope that every other process now is going to be in a united way, and we are going to continue maintaining solidarity of the House. With that, Mr. Speaker, let me thank you again, and thank you very much for the floor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Kennedy Mukuria.
Yes, thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to add into what other members have said. And I want to say that at the onset, I support this report as well as the motion that allow us to hold our sitting virtually. Right Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the Select Committee for the work that they have done, not ignoring the fact that the technical staff also did a wonderful job by working probably day and night. Make sure that this report comes out and the amendments are done. And then I also want to thank the Chair Committee for Legal Rules and Privileges and its members for work well done. And I would like to say why I support this report, because it responds to what happens when there are pandemics. We are also responding to the guidelines by World Health Organization. We are responding to guidelines from our national governments to have social distancing. By having virtual meetings like this, we are actually also distancing ourselves, a way of preventing the COVID-19. You can recall that in the year 1941, there was World War. And the World War, people are unable to meet. And parliaments all over the world and in other places, especially in Europe, were also holding their meetings virtually. So in this case, we have done one of the best and greatest job as an assembly to innovate. I am happy that in this case, that coronavirus has made us also to be very, very innovative, and that it has made us to do things the way they are supposed to be done. Right, Honorable Speaker, with this few words, I want to totally support this report, including the motion for virtual meetings and plenaries. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Honorable Muhirwa, now you move as you have indicated so that we end this, because there is going to be another important consultation I have to have with you. So I think if we save time, it will help us. So you move that we end the debate here? Honorable Muhirwa.
Yes, Right Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Istekenda. Yes. Kennedy Manikre and all the members. Now I will put the question. Honorable members, the motion before I get there, I think I have to go through the protocol, Chair, because members have not generated so many issues of contentious nature. You don't need to spend a lot of our time on.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, and thank you, honorable members, for a very good debate. Really, I didn't hear any concern about our report or the work of the committee. What I heard was that this is an extraordinary time, and the extraordinary time requires innovative solutions, and this is what we did as an assembly. And secondly, we are empowered by our treaty and the rules of assembly, but also the traditions and practices of a modern parliament The subcommittee did a thorough work to consult the work of various parliaments, and we are also guided by both the community's decisions from the highest level, the summit, the council, World Health Organization guidelines, that Rule 60, Article 6 of the treaty, Article 49 of the treaty, Article 55 of the treaty, but also various rules, including Rule 10, gives us a window to do our job, and what we've done is in order. So really, Right Honorable Speaker, I don't see any question to respond to apart from thanking you in particular, your brilliant leadership during this time. I also want to thank the members of the Committee of Legal Rules and Privileges for a job well done. It was a hot debate, but I'm happy we've been able to generate a quality report that we've been able to present to you. I also want to thank once again the subcommittee that did a very good job. And finally, before I read out the names of the people who made a contribution, just to recognize them, I also wanted to add my voice to continue standing in solidarity with the people and the government of the Republic of Burundi during this difficult time at the loss of a member of the summit. But we are also happy that yesterday you had another historic milestone of having the new leader being sworn in. So we also want to congratulate you. We also equally want to congratulate the people and the Republic of Kenya for another historic day that we had yesterday when Kenya was elected to be a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. And this is a win for not only for Kenya and East Africa, but for the entire continent, because Kenya was representing Africa. So these are historic milestones. So finally, Right Honorable Speaker, allow me to recognize the following who made very good contributions and also congratulated the subcommittee and also the committee. Honorable Dr. Obur, Honorable Susan, Honorable Kalonzo, Honorable Dr. Woda, Honorable Mbite, Honorable Aden, Honorable Alak, Honorable Dr. Ann, Honorable Thomas, Honorable Dr. Magembe, Honorable Muhirwa, Honorable Dr. Makame, Honorable Ayerson. Thank you very much, honorable members.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Now, honorable members, I put the question that the report of the Committee on Legal Rules and Privileges on the proposal for the rules of procedure for virtual meetings and sittings of the Assembly and the rules of procedure for virtual meetings and sittings of the Assembly be adopted. Those in favor, say aye. 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 Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Yes, honorable members, I really also wanted to congratulate you. As I said, the biggest mistake anyone can make, whether it is an individual or a group, is being indecisive on a situation or making a decision that you are not confident with. So as soon as you have a conviction and you are confident that you are doing the right thing, then you become ready to make a decision and defend it. So I'm very proud, as your leader, to be leading a group of people that are confident of themselves and they can make decisions and be ready to stand and defend them. We should not take offense against anyone who is not happy with what we are doing. Because if there is going to be anyone with a different opinion and wants to challenge our decisions, as I said earlier, that is part of the process. But we stand together as a team, and we will make sure that we defend our decision, and it is the right decision. Actually, more improved. Honorable Susan referred to many others who are already doing this, but our work is more polished. It's more improved. We have invested more than anybody who applied these methods ahead of us. So we are going to play an example to many others who will follow us. So I think in the region, we are the first parliament to go virtual, and we should be proud of that. Now it is because of the pandemic, and maybe we don't wish to have another pandemic, but we can have another situation that calls for these rules to apply. Yes, so thank you for this milestone. And I also want in a particular way to thank the subcommittee. When we tasked them initially in the commission, we didn't know that it was going to require this depth of analysis. I really thank you for the time you spent on this and the quality of work that you came up with. The committee as well, and all of you for the contribution you have made. The committee, you have done a lot of improvement on this. Now we are going to have a much, much better document. And I thank you, all of you. And we will undertake, under the arrangement we shall make, together with the subcommittee, to explain to the public this decision. Not that we are trying to justify anything, but we want to celebrate our achievement and share this achievement with the general public through a regional press conference that we shall organize very, very soon. So thank you and congratulations. Yes, Clerk, there is an item I had skipped, now I want to come back to it. Clerk?
Item number 2 on the order paper, communication from the chair.
Thank you. I also want to thank the technical team that has worked with us all along. Mr. Kibirige and the people from the office of the clerk, Asheri Wimire, you have been very, very supportive in this process, and you will go down in history as people who made a very serious contribution to this. We thank you very much. So, honorable members, some communications I had skipped because I wanted to make them at this moment. First of all, by the way, time can fly. We are now halfway our tour of duty. It's just the other day when we convened for our first sitting, and now today we are halfway. Time can run very fast. Now we are going into the second phase, the most critical of our tour of duty, one that requires that we consolidate on our gains and focus on our legacy. Every leader must think of his legacy or her legacy towards the end of the tour of duty. So this will require that we stand together, we remain united, we weather the storm together, so that when we end in the 2.5 years to come, we have something that we can look back and be proud of, and we hand over our assembly to those who will succeed us, hand it over in a better shape than we found it, because that is what should be an aspiration of anybody in the position of leadership, that you deliver something better than you found it to somebody who will come after you. So I thank you very much for the journey we have traveled together for this period, half of our mandate now. In a particular way, I want to thank members of the Commission whose term ends today, and we had a meeting in the morning to reflect on our journey together. There is a message I delivered to them that I wanted to share with you. I told them, members of the Commission, that they have made me a better leader than they found me. That every moment I had with them, whether it was a high or a low, was a moment of learning to me. There is always a learning opportunity in every situation. So I think in their hands, I have grown into a better person and a better human being. And I attribute that to them, and I thank them very much. They have been very supportive. We didn't have the moment of happiness all the time. But we would be in denial if we wanted to be happy all the time, because that's not human nature. Human nature is that you have your moments, but in the end, you come together and you go for that unity of purpose that brought you together. And we have managed as a commission to keep that ideal, to understand that we are here for a purpose, and for the purpose to be achieved, we must bring our opinions together, have our time to differ, have our time to unify. And we have always found that time to unify, because we have all acted in good faith. So I also had an opportunity to tell them I am sorry if there is a moment when I disappointed anybody and did something contrary to their expectations. I always own my weaknesses, and I know I offend many people most times, but I'm also very quick to tell them I'm sorry, because I never wanted to go home with grudges. And I do that when I approach you as an individual or even to a group. And every member of the commission have had that moment to see me coming to him and saying, sorry if I did anything wrong to you. To them as a group, I'm very proud. We worked together very well, and I really thank you very much. And to you, all of you, I think you can join me to appreciate the work that the commission has done, and to thank them for the services they have given. Yes. So now, according to our own laws, we have come to the end of the tenure for this commission, and tomorrow we shall have an election of a new commission. And I call it new because it will be new anyway, although rules do not bar anybody to go for re-election. So if there is a member of the commission who will be back, that's good for us. But I'm calling it a new commission because it is going to be a new team, a new mandate. So I will request you that when I adjourn in a minute, you stay behind for me to come and reflect with you on how, in an informal setting, on how we are going to conduct this exercise. Because the rules we have adopted empowers the speaker to issue guidelines on election. But I want to have your views before I issue them. It can be a better situation if these guidelines come from you and I just own them, than me sitting back and telling you this is what I have decided, even when you have empowered me to do that. It's much better that I get your opinions from you. So I request you that when I go out briefly and I come back, we discuss how we are going to conduct these elections tomorrow. Finally, let me see if there is something I wanted to tell you that I may have forgotten. No, there isn't. Yes, because I didn't communicate before. Our colleagues from Burundi, I said this before, but I have to say it again, because we have a saying that in Rwanda, and I know in Burundi, they also either have it or understand, for sure, understand what it means. Amagambo aryoha asubiwemo. Yes.
Clarification.
Yes, I'm giving a clarification. Yes, so we thank you, our colleagues from Burundi, for the giant step you took yesterday to have your new leader take the mantle of leadership for your country. We can't wait to meet him as an assembly, a new member of the summit. We are looking forward for that opportunity sometime soon. So on behalf of everyone, congratulations to our, and of course we know that the former leader isn't buried yet. We are still waiting for the communication on that. We continue to stand with you. I'm always talking to the chair of Burundi chapter about this. We continue to be in solidarity with you. We know the times you are going through are very trying, but we cherish your bravery in the way you have managed this situation. So I adjourn the House until tomorrow at 11 in the morning.
Clarification, Chair.
Either general.
Clarification.
I meant I'm coming back in a few minutes. I'm just. I had said this before. Please stay behind. Don't go away.
It's EALA. I thought it was different. It's EALA gown. They have but the other one has yellow flags on it. This is different.
In the report they said it may not be possible to take it to the border and then take it.
Lakini blue flag kita na yellow flag. I think they went and tell them.